This story happened about a month ago. I'm a 17-year-old female and have been staying with an elderly woman for a couple of months now. She's really nice and she lives alone. Her house is located on a sort of back road, and at night, her property is very dark and poorly lit. She has a motion light on her front porch, but nothing around the sides of the house or in the backyard. And when I say it's dark, I mean pitch black. I only work nights, so I always went in when it was dark. So one night, I was tired and went to bed pretty early. I shut the door to the bedroom and made sure that it was shut completely because I sleep in the nude. And that would have been an awkward situation if she walked by and saw me naked. I woke up in the middle of the night, probably around 2 or 3 a.m. I noticed that the door was slightly open, like someone had opened it and peeked inside. I didn't think anything of it and just figured it was the woman checking in on me. I didn't say anything about it and eventually just forgot. However, a few nights later, I was laying in bed texting. I couldn't sleep, and I usually slept with the window open because it got really hot in the room. While I was laying there, I heard something outside of the window. At first, I thought it was probably an opossum or a raccoon. But after a few seconds, I realized it sounded big and heavy, and I could hear every single step. It was brushing against the side of the house, and eventually made its way underneath the open window. I just lay there, as quiet as I could. I thought maybe it was a bear, and I obviously didn't want it to try and come inside. It sat under the window for what seemed like forever, and then I could hear it start to walk away. I could no longer hear the sound of footsteps, but off in the distance, I could swear that I heard a man cough. I really didn't get much sleep that night. Almost every night after that, I would stay up late to see if I heard anything outside of the window, and almost every night, I did. I would also find in the mornings that the door would not be completely shut, the way I had left it before going to sleep. One day, I asked the old lady about opening the door at night, and she assured me that she does not touch the door and rarely comes out of her room at night since she has her own bathroom in her bedroom. I said okay and quickly forgot about it. One night, I came and she was sitting in the living room watching TV. I sat down and began talking to her. She told me about her day and then started saying that my friend had stopped by and talked to her about me that day. I was puzzled and asked, what friend? She said it was an older man, maybe late 30s, and that he was saying that I was the girl of his dreams and that he had been in love with me for a long time. I had no idea who she could be talking about, but then it got me thinking. Maybe this man was what had been coming to the bedroom window. She then said that he was nice because he told her that he noticed that her back basement door looked like it had been broken and that she should get it fixed. That really made me uncomfortable. What was he doing in her backyard? And why was he examining the basement door? Could he have been the person that had been coming around to my bedroom door? Had he been coming in and watching me while I slept? I told the woman's son about the man and the weird stuff that had been going on. And since then, he put more lights around the house and replaced the basement door. Since then, I haven't had any other encounters, and she hasn't seen the man since. It was sometime in the spring, and I came home from my 5-minute walk from the bus stop in my safe suburban neighborhood to find that I was home alone except for my at the time 16-year-old brother. This was pretty common since my mom worked until 5:30 and my dad lived 2 hours away for work and only came around on the weekends. I went to my room and watched YouTube for some time, like normal, when suddenly a knock came at my bedroom door. I answered it, and it was Steve, a 20-something-year-old friend of my brother's, who sometimes came over unannounced to hang out with my brother, my parents, or me. Keep in mind that my brother is an ass, and always makes someone keep Steve entertained when he came over. I've never been alone with him, and we weren't exactly close, but I was really, really creeped out by him. He mentioned once that he was a high-functioning autistic and very smart, but acted like a normal person, give or take a few awkward quirks, and he wasn't very attractive. I simply groaned to myself when I saw him, and my brother was neglecting him again because he was on Minecraft and on Skype with some friends. I talked to Steve for a while in the kitchen and dining area, talking about school and music, when he asked,
"So do you keep your room locked all the time?"
I awkwardly said no and obliged to letting him see it, but I didn't think of it as a red flag. He came in and I was about to close the door. I'm kind of compulsive about keeping the door shut when I remembered my mom telling me I couldn't have guys in my room without having my door open, so I opened it all the way. He marveled at the drawing up on the wall and said,
"I don't want to be creepy, but I think you're just adorable. You're really cute."
I awkwardly said thanks, avoiding all eye contact, but I still wasn't that creeped out. I just thought he liked me as a little cute girl. He then started playing my electric keyboard, and being socially awkward, I tried to get my brother to come and play what he knew, so I wouldn't be totally alone. He came and played the song that he knew, but my brother eventually left. I was again alone with Steve. After a little pressing, I got him out of my room and we were back in the kitchen area. He mentioned something about having an IQ over 300 to impress me, then said,
"I guess you have a bunch of guys chasing after you."
I said I didn't know and tried to change the subject, but the creep just kept talking about it, and when he asked, "Are you a good kisser?" I said I didn't know, and then he said,
"Do you want me to show you?"
I freaked out inside. I said something about him being older than me, and went to the computer room where my brother was after mentioning trying to bring him back out. I knew Steve was listening, so I tried to find a way to tell my brother I needed help, but he still wouldn't do anything. Feeling alone and scared, I pretended to get a call from my mom, so I went into my room and locked the door behind me, only to then call my mom. She freaked out when I told her Steve was there, and he made a pass at me and she called the home phone in order to explain to my brother that Steve needed to leave. He left, and when my mom got home, I told her everything. My brother was in pretty big trouble, and I'm still kinda mad at him for it, but the story, unfortunately, gets worse. After a couple days, I was walking home from the bus stop again, and I saw Steve's car driving slowly by my street. I booked it to a place behind a bush in my neighbor's front lawn until he left. My dad called Steve's dad later to tell him that if he came around again, he would call the police. Luckily, we didn't see him for weeks, but I kept hearing things outside my window at night. When I made my dad check, no one would be there. Another little while went by, and I really heard someone outside. I heard heavy breathing and walking around. I heard someone saying my name, and I freaked the hell out and told my dad. He heard someone go into the woods behind our house, so he called the police. They found a white liquid around my window on the outside, and with a little searching, found him on the woods, naked, except for a shirt, and they arrested him. This didn't happen to me, but to my youngest brother, who's 9, and has a small build for a 9-year-old, so people mistake him for 7 or 6 years old. This happened late in the summer, at night, keep this in mind, and both him and my other younger brother were punished for being on the internet all day. So as punishment, they were forced to read a book from the library for an hour. My youngest brother left his book in the truck, so my dad gave him a flashlight since it was so dark that night. Side note, we don't live in one of those long driveway houses, or those houses in a neighborhood that are so close. No, we simply have a not so small, or not too big, yard. We had the truck parked in front of the garage, so it was close to the entrance of the house. As my brother walked to the truck, he heard something running really fast on the opposite side of the truck. He saw a black figure at the end of the truck and shined his light at it. It was a huge black bear. He described it as 6 foot tall and looked nothing like the regular bears from the zoo. No, this was an angry bear too, and it was growling at him. He said his teeth were sticking out. He was paralyzed in fear as the bear was slowly moving closer. You can say this next part was luck, or whatever, but at the time, my dogs were released to roam around the house. My dogs, which are 2 Shih Tzu mix, I guess heard the commotion and ran straight to the door and started barking. My brother then heard this and snapped out of paralysis and ran straight to the door since he wasn't so far from it. He ran in as fast as he could and started crying, and my parents questioned him. He was finally able to say, "There's a bear," and my parents went out to investigate. As soon as they opened the door, the dogs ran out of the door and started barking wildly at it and chasing it off our property. As soon as they opened the door, the dogs ran out the door and started barking wildly at it and chasing it off our property. Hell, they scared that bear so much that we haven't seen it since then. My brother says that if it weren't for the dogs that noticed it, he would have been dead or sent to the hospital for serious injuries. I sometimes imagine what would have happened if those dogs didn't snap him out of paralysis. That night could have been the last night I ever spoke to him. One day, I was staying at my dad's field in a caravan, and school had just finished, and it was nice to get out to the country now and then. It was around 12 at night, and my mom had already gone to sleep. I have an older brother called Joshua who was 16 at the time and was addicted to his phone, so he went up to the top of the field to get some connection to phone his girlfriend. As my sister and my dad and I got ready for bed, my brother bolted down the field at top speed, screaming. My dad said, "Josh, what the hell? It's 12 and your mom's asleep." Then my brother started crying. He said he was about to phone his girlfriend when a huge face popped out into the woods straight in front of him. My dad calmed him down and explained that it was probably his face light or a car's light. My brother calmed down and went to bed. Me and my sister and my dad followed soon after. As we walked to the caravan, I kept seeing weird lights and I thought it was just paranoia. I kept feeling a weird feeling for a few minutes, and then my sister grabbed my shoulder. She said, "Amy, did you see that?" I said, "What?" Then she said I thought I saw a figure. By now, I was freaking out. The next day, we went home, and I was glad to be back in my old bed. The next night, I saw it. There was a tall figure wearing black tattered clothing and had a pale face, so thin you could see the bones. It just looked at me, and being only 10, I let out the most horrible scream, and my parents rushed upstairs. It was gone. To this day, I always wonder who it was, or what it was. I can't help look over my shoulder every night. My sister has since forgotten about the encounter, but unfortunately, it has stuck with me forever. When I was 7 years old, I was suspended from school for numerous reasons. Since my mother had to work, I had to stay at my uncle's house. Being 3 rooms away from my uncle, he was unable to hear me perfectly. He couldn't have been able to stop this from happening. The doorbell was ringing, so he checked. It was a man talking about a survey. Later on, I found out he was the distraction. I was sitting on the couch, playing my Nintendo 64. I was in the room right where our back door was at. A man walked in from the back and put his hand on my mouth and my eyes. My uncle heard me moaning for help, but it just sounded like me getting mad at my video games, like I typically did. However, when my 4-year-old cousin saw what was happening, he screamed for help. He was the only one who saw the man's face, and all he could describe was a scary big black male with a beard. As my uncle rushed to the scene, the man had already escaped. As he was calling for the police, he went back to the front door after hearing a slam, and the man giving the survey was gone. When the police arrived, they found the man, who was a distraction, sitting outside the door with a knife. Apparently, he was waiting for someone to step out so he could cut them open. He was sentenced to 30 months in prison. 3 weeks later, as I was having a slumber party with my cousin, I heard our door jiggle, and it was opened. Thinking it was my uncle, I said, "What's up?" And a man wearing a mask walked in. It didn't hide his neck or his hands, which were black, so I knew instantly that it was the man who came for me. He started grabbing me until my cousin screamed. Before he was able to, my uncle charged in with a Glock pistol, shooting at the man. He started grabbing me until my cousin screamed. My uncle soon charged in with a Glock pistol, shooting at the man. But the man was out our window in no time. It was a 12-foot drop, so he could have broken or sprung his leg. Yet, he was gone. Whether he was shot or not was unknown. The police did a scan and found nothing. To this day, the man hasn't been caught. Later on, when I was at home with my mother, a brick was thrown into my window saying, "You put my friend in prison. Now I'm putting you in hell." To this day, nothing has happened except for common calls saying, "I will burn you." To this day, I wondered how they got my address, as this happened at my uncle's house. To this day, I've always wondered how they got my address, since all the previous things happened at my uncle's house, or why I was their target. This next story, by Josh Kirby, isn't true, but it was really well written, so I thought I might as well feature it in this video as well. Anyway, let's begin the story. It was pure dark in the room, but I felt as though I was in a lucid dream, and everything around me looked faded and distorted. I had broken out in cold sweats, but it was hotter than hell. I turned in frustration and tossed off my sheets, then turned back around lazily in my bed, looking for a comfortable position to fall asleep in. This is what I would call my usual good night's sleep. This, unfortunately, is what I would call my usual good night's sleep. I groaned with frustration. It was the third night in a row that I haven't gotten so much as 3 hours of sleep. "Having another tough night?" my brother said, which startled me. I couldn't quite make out his silhouette on his bed, but it was probably my bad eyes acting up again. "Yup," I replied, turning my back to him as I rolled over in bed. I muttered out, "How come you're not asleep?" And the reply sounded like a slow strand of weird-sounding words. "Oh, I'm just waiting for you to finally go to sleep." I was silent for a few minutes, thinking about how odd of a response that was. But I didn't think too much, as I was already in the process of closing my eyes. Then it hit me. I shuddered awake, still not fully aware of my situation. My eyes widened with fear as trickles of sweat started to run down my head. I had come to a chilling, heart-wrenching realization. My brother wasn't here. He was at a party. Who the hell is in my brother's bed? Who am I talking to? I suddenly felt frozen inside. It seemed as though the world became silent. Even the animals in it had stopped making sounds. My back was still turned, but I heard him getting up from the bed, his footsteps inching ever closer to me as he shuffled over, groaning gleefully. He was at the side of my bed now. I could feel his hot, warm breath against the back of my neck. He was leaning over me. His saliva was dripping onto me. He was waiting for me to turn around. I had nothing. No one to shout to. No weapon to defend myself. "Come on, Josh. Turn around," he whispered. This guy even knew my name. I yelled something at the top of my lungs and whirled to try and pounce on him, but it was already too late. He grabbed me by the neck and was pushing me down harder into my bed as his grip tightened. At least, I finally got a real good look at him. He was a man in his mid-40s with a scraggly beard. He was slightly overweight and bald, but the detail that struck me most was that he was wearing my brother's clothes, which didn't even fit him. I started to drift and was slowly losing consciousness. I heard one final thing from the man before my eyes closed. "Good night, brother." Hey guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for the support. And please, if you haven't already, like, comment, share, and subscribe if you're new. Also, follow me on Twitter to get updates and stay in the know. Also, if you guys want to check out a great channel on Twitch, live streaming games like Days, Battlefield, and more, I recommend watching my new partner Handkerchief, so check out his channel by clicking on his logo on the screen now, or his link in the description, and be sure to follow him. Let me know what you guys want to see in the upcoming videos by commenting down below, and if you have any stories to submit, send them to wormystories@gmail.com. I'll see you guys in the next video, and don't forget to subscribe to join the wormhole. Thanks for watching, stay safe.